Everyone, so we're going to do a couple painting studies from life. So a painting study usually refers to a quick painting activity. It's not a finished painting. It doesn't last for a very long time, and you're still experimenting with the materials, trying to get used to them. And really, your main objective with this activity is focusing on your observational skills, and particularly observed color. And what observed color means is the colors that you're actually observing. So you're thinking of tints and shades. So when you add black to make things darker, when you add white to make things lighter, and you're thinking about the darks and the lights on the objects that you're looking at. And so we're going to look at natural objects. For this assignment, you're going to paint fruits and vegetables, if you have a flower or plant or something, but something natural. You're going to make three, and they're going to be small. So I have the mixed media pad here, okay? I'm just going to tear, so I tore a paper out. You can take the edges off. If you don't want to tear it out, that's fine. You can just cut them in half and like do the ones that are inside the book. But I just think it's easier to take them out because I want you to make, we'll do 3 or 4 of these. So you're just going to fold it in half like this. Okay. And then you can tear it or you can cut it. So let's do 4, just because it's an even number. So tear 2 pieces of paper in half and find some interesting objects. Remember, they need to be natural. I'm asking you to make sure they're natural because the colors tend to be a little bit more interesting, and there tends to be a lot more variation in the color. Like when you look at an apple, very rarely is it just one shade of red. You get lots of different reds. You also get lots of different textures and things. Whereas if you're using more like manufactured objects, everything tends to be very similar, all the same colors on all the sizes. So I have 4 pieces of paper. Okay, so then you can move your mixed media pad to the side. Toss it on the floor. Okay, and now I have some apples. I cut up some beets, which have a really nice color, but they don't have much of a shape once you cut them up. So I wouldn't suggest cutting them up. I should have left them in the full form, but for this, I just cut them up, so whatever. I also have a little broken off piece of a jade plant. I have a jade plant, but part of it was dying, so I cut it off, so I have the jade plant. I also have a lemon that I cut in half because you have lots of different interesting textures and lines here, and it got some paint on it. And I also have a pear, and I also have a couple leaves of spinach. Okay, so I'm just going to make a few different arrangements. Now, of course, you can use more than that. You can, use oranges if you have celery, anything that's natural. Like if you have a vase of flowers, you want to take like a flower out in the petal. Nothing too big because you're doing them on this paper. Okay, so I'm going to turn the camera so you can see what I'm going to do. So as you see, so I have a little tight setup, so it's going to be hard for you to see everything at the same time. So I have my paint. I have my paint palette, which is a little messier than I would ask you to do it. You're still kind of in the beginning, so you probably set yours up a little bit neater. Some of this is dry paint that I forgot to wipe off. I have my sponge still, to remember to clean off your brush on the sponge. I have my cup of water with lots of different sized brushes. Okay, I'm just going to put that off to the side so that you can see my setup. So the first one I'm going to do is I'm just going to work with the lemon, a piece of spinach, and a couple chunks of beet. Now again, you kind of lose the shape of the beet, but it's fine. We'll just focus on the color anyway. And now you can arrange it any way you want. So if you've ever worked with beets before, you know that they stain. So Careful where you put them. I mean, eventually it should come out. So I'm going to set it up. I have my paper. So I'm going to move it in a little closer so you guys can see me working, because that's the whole point of this video. Move that out and move this up. Okay. Now, thank you for your patience. Okay, great. So a painting study means you're going to draw with your paintbrush. We're not drawing from observation, we're painting from observation. So at no time should you use a pencil. I know that might sound crazy, but I really want you to get used to using this material. And just like you folks learned how to draw with scissors when you were making your collages, meaning you didn't draw first and cut out, you just cut directly with the scissors, you're going to do that same thing with paint. So you're going to add, so you can see I have some yellow, I mixed it with some white, and I'm going to add a lot of water, because when you draw with paint, you want it to be loose, okay? So now the way this camera is set up, it's going to be a little upside down, but I'm looking at it, so this will be the top for me. This is going to be my top, even though it's the bottom on your screen. So it's just to let you know, like when I'm drawing this with paint right now, this is the top of my page for me. Okay, so I'm just going to go in. Now I want to get the entire painting in all together. Okay, I'm not going to paint the lemon and then go back and paint the beets and paint the spinach. I'm going to I'm going to draw everything kind of at the same time. And what I mean by that is I'm going to pay attention to everything in their relationships to each other. Now you're probably thinking, oh, but the beets aren't yellow. Why are you drawing with yellow? It's fine. You're lightly sketching in the objects, okay? Think of this as like being like a pencil, okay? Now I'm going to put in the leaf. Okay, and now what you also need to consider is you want to consider the shadows as well. Now, we're not going to do black and white shadows. We're going to use our understanding of warm and cool colors, cool being purples, blues, greens, and warms being oranges, yellows, and reds to make our shadows. So my shadows are going to be a little bit of like a grayish blue. So I mixed a little bit of white, a little bit of blue, and now I'm mixing a little bit of red, and I'm going back here and I'm putting in that shadow. You can even use a bigger brush. And I'm going to go back here. I'm going to put in the shadow. Now, this doesn't have to be fully true. Like, I actually kind of want to just fill up this big white space. So I'm going to just add the gray around, and then I can go back and make it darker if I need to. Okay? Now, that might not look like anything, but what it is right now, it is just the general composition of your object setup. And now I'm going to go in and I'm going to mix some yellow and blue. So I'm looking at this spinach leaf. Now remember, you can add more water to spread that paint around, and now you see it's a lot lighter than it is there. Don't worry about that. You're going to go back in and just create some layers of the Now you see it gets darker down here, and now this is lighter, now this is getting darker. Now of course you can add a little bit more blue. You see I'm not using any black. Now there's a little bit light here, so I'm going to clean my brush off, and I'm going to add a little bit of yellow there, not even using white, because to make a lighter green, you don't necessarily want it to be white because white cools it off. You want it to be warmer. So you're going to add yellow to make it warmer. And you're going to add blue to make it cooler. We're going to talk about these things in class. Okay? So I don't want you spending too much time on each of these. So now I'm going to take some red. I'm going to take some blue. Now I'm making my purple for my beets. And like I said, these beets don't really look like anything here because they're just these dark forms. But they're a little bit lighter on the outside. So at a certain point, I'm going to add a little bit of orange there. Because the way that light is hitting it, it's not a pale purple with a white. It's almost like a yellowy purple because of the way the light is hitting it. You can even add a little bit more red if you feel like it's more of a violet. Now everybody's purples and oranges and greens might be a little different depending on the brand of paint you bought. As you can see, mine is probably going to be a little bit different than yours. Now I'm going in, I'm painting all the beets. Now this is really quick. I'm not focusing too much on the details. I'm really looking at the colors and the temperatures of the colors, like how dark they are. Now this blue is not the best blue to make a purple with. So I might try to use a different blue, or I might even put in a little black. But just for the sake of this, I'm just going to add a different blue. They just didn't have... I couldn't get a kit that you guys got. They didn't send me one. I tried to get one. So now I'm going to go to the lemon. Now I can change the size of my brush. It's a little bit bigger. I'm going to use this really pale yellow. I'm going to fill in the big space of the lemon. It's okay if the colors mix in there a little bit. Okay. Now I want to do the core. I want to do the rind around the edge. And now I'm going to go back. It almost looks like it has a little bit of orange in there, so I can make a little bit of a pale orange. Now I can go over it with a little bit of paler yellow. Once you let that dry, you can go over that with a little bit more of like a wash, which means you're just adding water. So I'm putting a little bit of white. And you really want to look at all those interesting little lines, and you kind of want to replicate that because that's going to help you get the color you want by getting the texture. Okay, now I can go back in and I can try to work on this shadow. So I'm going to use a little bit of this bluish green, and I'm just going to try to add have a little bit of a shadow here and under here. I did all of this without using any black. So your goal for these painting studies is to try to do this without any black. Okay, you're looking at observed color, you're not looking at things in black and white. So here's one, okay? I'm gonna put that to the side. Now I did another one earlier, and this was the apple and this small little jade plant. I had it on this gray paper. Kind of like this, okay? And I just, that's not the exact setup. And I just looked at the shadows coming on the gray paper, and now you see that I filled in my entire paper with gray, okay? So you're gonna do 4 of these. Each one should be different, okay? And you wanna focus on the warm colors being yellows, reds, oranges, and then the cool colors being purples, blues, and greens. You can see I have all these beautiful types of greens in here. This is really warm because I added more yellow, and this is really cool because I added more blue. I didn't use any black, okay? And then the lemon, I used like small little strokes to kind of draw in the texture lines, and what happened was it created all these beautiful ranges of colors, okay? Okay, great. Hopefully this is helpful, and like I said, we're going to go over all of this in class. Great.